So week 11. Well, this week, to be quite honest with you, has been not a disaster, but obviously last week, or I think the week before, I slipped down the stairs and hurt my back. And I went into the gym, trained, and managed to work my way around it. But following on into last weekend, my back was killing me. It was actually really, really bad. So I didn't train legs last week, and I didn't train legs this week. And because of that, obviously I train my legs quite hard, and it is a session that is probably, it probably is one of the harder training sessions that I have. My body's obviously adjusted to that and adapted to that, and so I've not trained my legs twice this week. I've not trained my legs twice in the last 2 weeks, and I tried to offset that a little bit with cardio. Not doing more, just increasing the pace a little bit. And as we've seen, my weight came down to 101.7 and it's crept back up to 102. So that's a 1.3 kg gain in terms of body weight. Is it fat? Of course it's not. What it is my nutrition not being burnt off because of the lack of exercise. A lot of the times we will see the scale move, and a lot of the times we're doing the right things. We're on nutrition, we're on hydration, we're doing our cardio, we're doing our training, and sometimes we get these little jumps up, these little spikes up in weight. Now, we have to understand that it's nothing to stress about. This constant urge of seeing the scale move down, and obviously I'm trying to move myself towards 97 kilos, so naturally you want to see the scale move down. But sometimes you are going to have blips. I slipped down the stairs, hurt my back, so my training last week wasn't as intense as it should be. I have not been able to train legs for 2 weeks. So, these little sort of, not setbacks, but these little sort of stumbling blocks that we hit can create cause and effect. And one effect of not being able to train at the normal intensity that I train at, and not being able to train legs as much as I'd like, has resulted in my body just holding on to a little bit more of the food that I'm eating. Now, obviously, the initial thought might be, well, I'll just cut my food. Like I've said from day one, the last thing we cut is nutrition, because it's very easy to cut it, but it's not so easy to add it back in. So we have to make sure that, on this process, we understand the reasons why things happen. And sometimes there are no reasons why things happen. Sometimes you step on the scales and you've dropped a kilo from nowhere. Sometimes you step on the scales and you've gained a kilo from nowhere. But we're humans, and so we have to, understand that the process is not a linear one. Just because we start it doesn't mean it's always going to move in the direction that we want. So this week, back's feeling fine. Trained this morning, no drama, no problems at all. No twinges, no pulls, no nothing. So this week, I will go back to my normal level of intensity in terms of training legs. Nutrition won't change, cardio won't change, and we'll see where we are this time next week. I have a feeling, just from experience and having done this several times, my body will readjust itself, and we will probably be back down 1.2, 1.3 kilos, so taking me back to where I was last week. Now, we've only got 6 weeks left, and a lot of people will be thinking, wow, that's not a long time, there's not a lot of time to create any changes. Trust me when I say 6 weeks is so much time. And a big part of the reason why I'm able to sort of manipulate my body in that time frame really comes down to the work that's been done before it. And this is what I try to explain to a lot of you this is all about preparing your body for change. When we start a process, we want to change straight away, but what we have to kind of get our minds wrapped around is that many of you have never actually been in the shape that you want to be in before. And so we are literally teaching your body and preparing your body how to get there. I have been through all of that and done all of that. So I can manipulate my body in a way that I know it's going to respond, but more importantly, not to destroy what I've built. So going into week 12, nothing will change. There's going to be no changes. There's no drastic responses because I gained 1.3 kilos. There's no panic. There's no urgency of trying to get it back off. I'll fall back into my normal routine. I'll train at my normal intensity. Today's training session was mad. It was up there. It was probably one of the best sessions I've had. And sometimes we have to understand that when we are holding injuries, or there are certain parts of our bodies that aren't feeling right, it does deter from training. You can't be as intense, and you're not as concentrated or as motivated because there might be a certain part hurting, or you might be tired. So we have to build that into the picture as well. But today felt great, trained really well, looking forward to tomorrow, and then I'm really looking forward to just cracking on with the rest of the week and training at a high level, just to make sure that we're back on the right track, because it can be quite demotivating when you can't train for a certain period of time because you've got an injury. But this is part and parcel of training. Like, over the last 15 years, I've not really been injured from training. The injury that I had to my back, slipped down the stairs. Those types of things, it's life. Sometimes shit happens. So we have to, take everything into consideration when we're training. I know we want the results, and for sure I want the results. I'm seeing my body change, and like I said to you last week, I've got a bit between my teeth now. I feel really good. This is a little stumbling block that's happened in a period where I feel good, but it is what it is. Like, there's no point stressing about it. There's no point being anxious about it or or worrying, overly thinking about the situation. It is what it is. It's part of training. It's part of the process. It's part of understanding how you work and learning the mental side of taking time off. Like I always say to you, rather a week off than a month, rather a month than a year. So I took 2 weeks out of the gym from training legs. 2 weeks later, I feel fine, ready to go, and we're back to it. If I'd have trained legs 2 weeks ago, I probably would have made it worse. Wouldn't have been able to train upper body. Probably would have had to have spent 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks out of the gym completely, which would have really derailed everything. But I was able to manage training to a certain level, didn't train legs, was smart in my approach, and now I'm back being able to train legs at full intensity and the rest of my training. So, showing you this whole process isn't really about showing you how I can go from being overweight to being back in shape. That's part of it, but the main part of it is showing you that I go through the same things. I go through setbacks. I go through weekends out eating food. I go through, doing very similar things to yourself, and showing you that there isn't too much drastic, panicky, over compensation that we need to make when things aren't always going in the direction that we want. Sometimes it's just about being composed, understanding why things happen, and then being able to move on from it without it affecting everything else. So that's week 11 wrapped up. Fingers crossed we can get back to it this week, and hopefully in week 12 we can see the results that we want to see.